We're going live here. So my name is Jim Black, and this is the Build Mastermind. I'm going to be doing this today with Mike Novak, and Rachel Novak is also part of that as well. And we're going live on Real Academy for the first time, and we're really excited to be able to bring this to the whole Real ecosystem, because there really is a lot of value in this. It's one of the best masterminds that I've been part of. Over the years I've been in the business. So I have a team out in Massachusetts, just to give a little info about me, where, do 2 to 250 transactions a year. I've been doing this for about 14 years, real estate. And I think between all of us, there's just a lot of stuff I think we can bring and help people to grow, and just, again, just become better. And really the format of this is going to be, it's going to be mostly me and Mike, talking about, hey, what is our topic here? The offers, writing strong offers. And we're going to chat about that today, go back and forth. We're going to have some question and answer sessions at the end as well, because we want to make sure that we leave here answering any questions you do have. But I think we've gotten where we are, being able to write offers that we get accepted. And I think that's really important. And I know, Mike's market is very, very competitive. My market is getting more and more competitive by the day again. And we really need to be very creative as we're doing this. Do you want to briefly introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, great intro, Jim. Yeah, Mike Novak. Rachel and I run a team in Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle, by about half an hour or so. And this group kind of started as a mastermind between our team, Jim's team out in Massachusetts, and Ed Stroud's team out of Kansas City. The three of our teams are really similar in the way that they're built and structured and the volume they do and things like that. And our vision was to, hey, like, how can we take this and actually bring it to a larger community? And it started with like our Real network, and now it's expanded to the entire Real company. So really exciting to have this in the Real Academy. Super grateful to Joe for getting that done from Corporate Real and being able to bring that value to the whole ecosystem beyond just our downline. So excited for that. We're talking about offer writing today, like how to win offers, how to be competitive, how to stand out in a really competitive landscape. If we look at the market from the last couple of years, haven't had to think that much about this. 2020, 2021, this was really, really important. And then, we obviously saw that massive increase in rates in 22, and it cooled things off quite a bit. And the playbook kind of became dead for about a year and a half, and the tactics changed a lot, and lots of concessions, lots of negotiating, lots of deals to be having. It's a great time to buy, really, if you could buy. But now what we're seeing through our, we're networked across the country with agents and teams like Jim's and Ed's. We're seeing just a dramatic decrease in inventory, and we're seeing some pent up buyer demand. Like if you think about the last 2 years, a lot of buyers have said, I'm going to wait, right? They've hit that pause button. And now that rates, they've come down a little bit, like they're not in the 8s, which is awesome. They're not in the 7s. They briefly went into the low 6s and their mid 6s now, depending on who you talk to. But that has really created a dynamic where people are reinterested in picking back up the home search, So you've got a really interesting dynamic where you've already got a super low inventory, and now you maybe have the largest pent-up buyer demand in several years because people just didn't buy a house. Jim, do you know how much transactions were down last year versus 21 or 20?
I know my market, what they were down. They were down, I think it was about 21% in my market from 2022 to 2023, and it was about 31% from 21 to 23 in our market.
Yeah, really similar to ours. Ours was down 30% one year and 35% the next year from the previous year. So like really big drop off. And nationally, I think we were at between 6 and 7 million units at the peak, and it was like 4.5 million last year. So, the amount of closed transactions dropped off massively as the rates went up. But I think that's about to change again, and we're already seeing it in our market, and we're seeing multiple offers again. It's not like everywhere, it's kind of pocketed right now in really hot areas and with really particular price points and homes too. So this is not just like a blanket statement for every market and every property type, but we are seeing it more frequently than we've seen it since 2021, really. There's been a couple of years since we've seen this kind of activity. And so that's really the context for today. Like let's dust off the playbook from 20 and 21 and let's go deep on how to make your offer stand out. Because in 2020 and 2021, it was like 15, 20 offers on every single house we put an offer in on. And that was its own form of exhausting, right? Like we're all tired right now because the grind is really different. The grind is all about finding qualified people that can afford to buy in a market where the prices have gone up 50% and the rates have doubled. So we're dealing with this like affordability crisis now and an inventory crisis. Back then, it was just like, how the hell do we get an offer accepted when there's 20 that we're competing with? So it's a different kind of pain, but it's a relevant one to revisit as the market goes back towards that low inventory, that multiple offer situation. Right, Jim?
Yeah, well, and one thing that you remind me of is not every part of every market is the same too. I mean, I just had a conversation with an agent on a condo the other day, and that is probably one of the biggest keys to this is we got to figure out what's going on with that property before we just start thinking about offers. I called the agent, the highest price that had sold in that market, in that condo complex, had sold for about 25% less than this new one was selling for. So there was no way for me to know what number this was going to go for. So I had to call her and feel it out. I said, like, this is what we're going to offer. What do is that in the range? Is that even, worth putting in? So
Right.
asking some feeler questions, as opposed to like, hey, what do you got for offers and stuff? Just, hey, and I called another agent today and, I said, where do you think this is going to end up? Like, how much do you think it's going to sell for? Like, that's a great question to ask a list agent because it's going to give you, they're not telling you what it's going to sell for, but they tell based on what they think it's going to sell for, it tells you the activity they have and the offers they're getting.
Yeah, they're kind of sharing you're asking what their opinion is, and people like that. You know what I mean? You're not saying that there's a subtle but a significant difference in the language pattern. You're not asking if they have an offer that's up to like 525. You're just saying, hey, Jim, based on the conversations you're having with buyer agents, could you see this home going above 540? You know what I mean? And you'd be really surprised by the response you get on that. Anna, who's on this call, my showing partner, I would just have this conversation. Like, how do you ask these questions in a way that makes people want to answer them and not feel like you're pinning them down on something they maybe shouldn't be sharing from their seller? So, but let's back the train up just a little bit, because as we talk about how to be really competitive with offers, we would be remiss to not talk about proper preparation of our clients. Like that's where this all begins, right? And this, I've preached this for years. You guys are probably sick of hearing it, but the frickin' buyer consultation matters, guys. Like taking the time before you run around opening doors for people to sit down with them and really learn what they're looking for and educate them on the home buying journey in the market is the single most important thing you can do to help them buy a house. If you don't do that, if you're just an order taker, just a door opener, you're really setting yourself up to fail. And a lot of what we're going to share with you today isn't really going to help you because you haven't set proper expectations and you haven't properly prepared your client. So I want to challenge you. If you're going to do just one thing off this call, do the buyer consultation. Sit down with that person for half an hour, go through your buyer's guide, walk them through the home buying process from start to finish, make sure they know exactly what to expect buying a house, and get their mindset set properly. Like this in 2020 and 2021, I would just tell people like, hey, you're going to offer 3, 4, 5 times probably before you get an offer accepted. It's going to feel really defeating to both you and to me. Like we're in this together. But ultimately, if you just keep going, what I've discovered is you're going to get your offer accepted eventually. It's just a matter of time. We're going to keep getting more competitive on our offer terms, keep pushing our price to where it needs to go. We're going to figure this out. And it's just a law of averages. Eventually, you're going to get your offer accepted, right? So you got to just keep going. But you got to frame that. If you don't do the consultation, I guarantee you, once you get into multiple offer situations, your client's not going to feel prepared. And if they don't win that house, they're probably going to drop out. They're just going to be like so disappointed because you didn't set their mindset right. They're not going to buy a house. They're going to shelve it, right? They're going to pick it up in a year or whatever. When the prices are even higher, they're not going to end up buying a house. So do the buyer consultation and make sure that you've set expectations and you've set the mindset on what they're actually going to need to do to buy a home in your market. Okay. And this is totally unique to where you live and what your market looks like. This isn't just mine or Jim's. This is what does yours look like, Maybe it's longer days on market, maybe it can be more, more competitive on asking for concessions, things like that. But for our market, it's really competitive right now, and we have to set those expectations. So I just want to make sure we're really clear on that.
Well, I think when we're doing that too, we also want to, something I like to do is to pull up sales that are similar to what they're looking for. So they can, because you can go at a house that's listed, and I know you guys sell these houses, we sell these ones, but like we sell one, a house goes on the market for 300,000, sells for 350. I don't need to show them the ones that are on the market right now. I need to show them the ones that sold. And it sold in 2 days with all these offers, went for 350. So they can see you got to be prepared. If your budget is 350, you're not looking at 350 houses, you're looking at 300 houses or 325, depending on the market that you're in, and being prepared for that. So it's not this big shocker, because again, they'll be thinking, hey, I just submitted a full price offer and I waived the inspection. Why didn't I get it? Well, you didn't educate them on the market, so they didn't know that they weren't.
The last two tours that I went on, that were go and shows from Zillow, actually we print out like information on the home, and we have our, go and show packet for them and everything. But I also pulled from the hot sheet the last 7 days worth of sales in that city that we were touring in, and gave it to them. And I pointed out, you can see the average days on market is dropping. Look at all of these ones that sold in less than 7 days. And if we look at the sold price versus their list price, it's over 100% right now. So just wanted to give this to you while we're touring this home, so you can kind of have some food for thought and so forth. And it went over really well. They both were really receptive of getting that information right off the bat.
Yep. In my buyer consultation, I break the process down into a 4-phase approach. The first phase is the preparation phase, right? We go like really deep on what it means to be prepared. The second phase is the home touring phase, where I'm actively looking at homes, and so we're prepared for that phase. The third phase is the offering phase. And so we go really deep on what it's going to take to be competitive with their offer and what it means to offer on a home. And that's really where you start with the tactics, right? And kind of sharing with them like how we create these strategies. You'll find if you don't do this that people just kind of want to throw a number out there. They're going to say, hey, I want $10,000 off this house. It just sounds kind of cool. It sounds like a great number. There's zero thought process or data to support this statement. It's kind of what they're just thinking, you know what I mean? Or how they feel, which is really dangerous. So what I always like to tell people is, hey, when we find a home that you love, I'll be the one that writes the offer for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to guess on the number we're going to offer on this house. I'm going to instead pull comparable sales, homes that are similar size, age, condition, just like what Jim just said, and that have sold recently. I'll show you how much they were listed for, and I'll show you how much they actually sold for. That way you can kind of see, like, if they're going above list price or below list price. The second big thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at days on market. Days on market is a huge variable into our strategy. If the home just came on the market today, we know that seller is going to be super dug in on price, and we're going to have to go all out to win that house. If the home's been on the market for 3 weeks, it's a totally different mindset that the seller's in. And then it totally depends, right? So those are the two big things that I think are really important to talk about when you frame price, right? Days on market is a really big, important variable to talk about. And then how you're actually going to come up with the number you're going to offer. A lot of listing agents ask you, and I fucking hate the statement, for your highest and best offer. If I never hear that again for the rest of my life, I will be happy. I hate that. Like, I understand it's in your seller's best interest. More often than not, it's not in your buyer's best interest. I don't even remember the last time I had a buyer offer in that strategy. Highest and best, for those that don't know, is where you just put out like your number. Like, let's say the home is listed for 400 grand, and you say, here's $450,000 for this house. To me, that's like a reckless way to buy a house. Because what if no other offers come in, right? You just overpaid for the house by $50,000. And guys, you're a fiduciary, right? You have a financial responsibility to look out for your client, right? Like, it's super important that you're looking out for their best interest. So I will always give them an example of what the highest and best looks like. And then I'll give them an example of what using an escalation would look like, and why I think an escalation is in their best interest versus just putting out their highest offer. When it comes to escalations, there's a couple things I coach my clients to do. The first thing is to end on non-rounded increments. Say that again, non-rounded increments. What's a non-rounded increment? Well, 400 is a rounded increment. 450 is a rounded increment. Every freaking agent ends on rounded increments. So get your client to go a small amount above the next rounded increment. So if you wanted to cap at 450, cap it like 453, right? Just a token amount above that closest rounded increment, because everyone else stops there for whatever reason. I've seen hundreds of offers over the last 7 years, and they always write them to rounded increments. I don't know why, but they just do. So when people zig, we want to zag. And so that's one of the things I'll tell them to do. The other thing I'll tell them to do is use an increment that is of significance. And when I say significance, I mean like 1% at least, right? And the reason I want an increment of significance is I want to make sure that there's thought the seller's going to have to put into taking our offer or not. Like if there's another offer that has a very strong term that ours does not have, but ours is a higher price, they have to think about leaving all this money on the table to take that stronger term. An example of that would be, we don't waive our inspection, but this other one does, right? Like what's that worth to you? Okay. And that's why you want to have an increment that's significant. Again, I've seen hundreds of offers from agents. I see $500 on there as an increment all the time. That is not going to get the job done. That is not helping your client.
Yeah, and I like how you use the percentage because, you know, in different markets, different price points, it makes sense. Like in our market, it's usually around $5,000, which is 1% on average is usually what I'm doing. We used to do 1,000 and it never had an impact. And I don't even suggest that people do that. The other thing is when it comes to escalations, I know your market, I think is a little bit different. Like there's people in our market who will not like acknowledge the escalations and will present them poorly to their sellers. Is have a conversation with the agent about escalations and make sure that that's actually going to even be the right strategy, because it may be a strategy you can't do and actually make work, or you might put in an offer with an escalation and they're using that to bump, you know, to get other offers in there. So trying to, you know, again, be smart about it. So there's a few agents that do a decent business in our market that won't do escalation clauses because I know they will weigh them a lot less heavily.
Yeah, and I've had agents do that too, where they're like, nope, I won't do it. And to be totally honest with you, I have a very hard conversation with the client. More often than not, we don't end up offering them the house. Yeah. Like the risk just doesn't outweigh the reward, you know, or the upside to it. So
yeah, I think if you have some sort of clarity on what, you know, if you're looking at the comps, you're talking to the listing agent to get a feel for the activity, you have a pretty good idea what this thing's going to sell for if you know that market.
Right. Exactly. You know, another thing to talk about when you're considering putting in an escalation is your timing really matters, because the last thing you want to do, Jim, and you just mentioned this, is submit your offer and your offer now becomes leverage to get other offers up higher. It's a real risk. And so the question becomes, how do you mitigate that risk? And the best way that I've seen to do it is talk to the listing agent, see if they're taking an offer early. If they'll take an offer early, maybe your highest and best offer makes a lot of sense. Like, hey, here's a great offer. It expires today. It's basically what our cap would be anyways, or maybe slightly below that. But after that, if you don't take it, then whatever, we'll come in on the review date and we'll give you a list price with an escalation, right? Like we'll change our terms. But if they're going to wait till the review date, then what I like to do is like to have my clients sign the offer. I will then hold on to the offer, and approximately 2 hours before the cutoff time, boom, right in your inbox, right? I'll even send it through Gmail. So it goes out and CC myself, so I get a reminder that it just went out. And 2 hours before the cutoff is when I send it. That's just enough time to vet out the financing, to give me a call and talk through the terms, but it's not enough time to get back on the phone and start driving all these other offers up. You know what I'm saying? So think about your window of how long you're going to give them to sit on your offer. And it always expires that same day that it's been submitted. Have you done that same thing, Jim?
Yeah, we don't do that as much. It actually is a really good strategy. Honestly, I mean, I think the recent one I just did was what you said. They started showings. They had an open house in a few days. I called up and I said, hey, like, how do you guys handling offers? And they said they're going to present them as they go. And I said, okay. So I went back to my client and she said, I need this. Like, I don't care what you got to do. Mm-hmm. So we went in, it was 30,000 underpriced. So we went in 50,000 over and waived inspection, cash deal, and got it done. But I only gave them a very short time frame. I think it was like 7 o'clock at night and I gave them until 9 a.m. or something.
Yeah. Like, hey, make a decision. Here's a great offer. Take it or leave it. I love that.
You have a question, Sue?
Hi, everybody. Yep. It just occurred to me that having put a listing on the market on Friday and gotten multiple offers, I'm sure we all prepare these kind of grids for our clients to help them understand the various differences of each offer. But I wonder if this isn't a good idea to show to a buyer that this is what's going to be happening on the other end. And it's not just one line item like closing date and list price. There are so many different variables. that go into making a really great offer. I'm doing a buyer consult tomorrow, and I think I'm going to do that because there are multiple offers here again. The other thing is, one of the people that submitted an offer said they would do anything to get this house. Just what could they do? And they had submitted a pre-qualification letter from an online lender. And I said, that's a non-starter. You need to go with a known entity and not Chase Bank, because here Chase Bank is horrible. And so they went with a lender that we knew. And then the very next day on Monday, after we gave them the listing, they won the offer. We heard from the lender that they were shopping lenders. And I called the agent and said, if you're shopping lenders, this deal is over, because we had an agreement. And it just had slipped his mind, because normally we can, our clients should shop lenders. But by the time you get to a competitive bid situation, you need to know that you've got a really solid lender that can be counted on to get to the closing table. And so this particular house gives me the opportunity to talk about the importance of a strong lender without sounding as though I'm trying to dictate who they go with from a lending standpoint. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Really great insight, Susan. And that's a conversation we always have too, like right in the buyer consultation. And the way I disarm them a little bit is I say, hey, you can use any lender you want. Ultimately, it could have a huge impact on whether your offer gets submitted or not. The one thing I want to make sure you don't do is I don't want you to use an online lender. I want you to use a local mortgage specific lender. And if you'd like, I can connect you with one of our lenders that's helped hundreds of our best clients in the past and that we know can execute at a super high level. But that lender's reputation and their knowledge of the market has a huge impact on whether your offer could get accepted or not. So like if you frame it like that, I think that they will understand it and they'll be more on board with it. Ultimately, I always tell people too, the rate you're going to get doesn't matter if you can't win the house, right? It's that simple, right? If you can't get across the finish line and get the offer signed, then that rate that lender has promised you is completely insignificant. So that's super important. And the lender they're really your partner to get the deal done. If you think about like the number one reason homes don't close, it's inspection issues and it's financing. So when you address those two concerns with offer strategy, and you have a strategy for inspections, you have a strategy for the financing, and there's complete confidence in the financing, and they talk to the lender, that really removes a big concern there and a big variable. Glad you brought that up, Susan.
Yeah, no, that was a great point. And I love the idea of sitting in a consult with that. I think that's a really great way to do that. And I think part of that consult too, that's really important to remember is we got to be willing to have very tough conversations. Like we need to be willing to, go in there and not worry like, hey, am I going to step on toes? We got to be really confident about like, hey, this is, if you want a house in this market, this is what it looks like. And if they're dictating the process, it's probably not going to work out super well. Like even like when we look at like the numbers, like, okay, what are your deposits and stuff? Like we'll put in larger deposits there because, I almost think with, for me, if I have somebody who really, really wants a house and they're doing 20% down financing or something, I'm probably given we have two steps in our sale process, a offer and then a purchase and sale deposit. I'm going to put 10% down.
Yep.
Tara has a good question in the comments there. I don't know if you saw it, Michael.
I didn't see it now.
She says, any advice or pointers when listing agents are dragging on at expiration time, not giving any straight answers, especially if the buyers really want the home?
It depends on how hard you want to push, I guess. And it's a conversation with the buyers. Do you have I don't know the words for it, but basically an offer that drops in price over time? Like, hey, the offer is X until 8 o'clock. You guys can come back to us later, but the buyer needs to obviously be willing to, walk away at that point. So you're kind of calling a bluff.
I've even done it on our clients where I called the agent and was just like, hey, this is our expiration time. Like, if they're gonna let that pass, we're gonna rework our offer, we're gonna change it, and I'm really not disclosing on the fact that probably we're increasing it because they want the house that much, but just saying like, hey, if they're not gonna respond, we're gonna adjust our offer, and it might not work out for your clients. And just be really vague, and it scares them if they're not good at what they're doing.
I asked,
Are
had this come up my last 2 deals, like I've had the expiration time and then it comes and goes and I hear nothing, and I'll call them and I'm like, hey, and they're like, oh yeah, we're working on it. And I'm like, but the offer expires in 5 minutes.
Well, you got to remember the market you're in though too. Like expiration dates don't mean much, to be totally honest with you. Like you don't have the leverage they do. Let's be honest. You know, like they're calling the shots. They got the inventory, you don't, and you want it. And they probably have 3 other agents they're talking to as well. So
Yeah.
I just don't think expiration dates hold the weight that they maybe once did. And when inventory is higher and there's more options, it carries a lot more weight. But they know that they have the control. So you just got to keep that realistic in the back of your mind.
Yeah. The last one, it had been on the market for 3 weeks. Like it had been on, and I knew that the seller was desperate. It was the agent, and I had already talked to her, and she just was not answering. Yeah, I know it was kind of a one-off, but yeah, I was just kind of curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I mean, we just tried to play tough guy. I think this was last week, and we did that. We said if you don't accept it, you know, we're going to withdraw our offer. We'll come back 25,000 lower. Well, we ended up going into contract for 5,000 higher because again, we're not in the driver's seat. And that's the thing, is you got to know if you're in the driver's seat or not. I did that when I bought my house. I tried to play tough guy, and you guys need to accept it. And they just kind of said, I don't really care, which shows their cards. If they don't care, that means they've got something else that is just as good, if not better. So they're not really worried if you step away. So it is really good to read the situation and make sure you're only pushing when you can push, and it is hard in certain markets, right? I know some of the markets we're in, you can push and some you can't. And we have to know that we have to be we have to know our market. We have to know what the inventory is. We have to know how quickly they're selling. You know, we need to know all that data so we can share that with our clients, because we have clients that might look in 2 different markets. One that's a super strong seller's market and one that's a little softer. And hey, for this house, we need to go way over list price. And on this house, we actually might be able to negotiate. And that makes it so you build trust with them too. They know that you know what you're doing, and they're hopefully going to listen to your advice because they want a house.
Some of the other things, the like specifics that Jim and I were going back and forth on. I mean, he talked about earnest money a little bit. We always coach our clients 3% earnest money if it's going to be competitive. And I just tell people it's one way to make your offer more competitive. That's going to cost you nothing extra. It's just $1 less for every dollar you put down. You're going to bring it to the closing table. In 20 and 21, we did a lot of non-refundable earnest money. Like almost every offer was non-refundable and released to the seller right away. So you can always kind of keep that in mind too. To do non-refundable earnest money, you need to have total confidence in your buyer's financing and their ability to cover a low appraisal, scenarios like that. So, but that was really common for us. Where I don't feel like our market's there yet, but it certainly could get there, in the next 6 months if inventory keeps going down and demand keeps going up. So earnest money, inspection strategies. You want to talk about that a little bit, Jim? For us, we really try to talk about pre-inspection strategies, seller procured inspection strategies, and then actually just like the old school way of using an inspection contingency.
Yeah, I mean, in our market, again, it depends on the property. We've definitely been able to do actual inspections, but we've also had ones based on the situation, we're waiving them. Sometimes I had one recently where we tried to say, okay, we won't negotiate if the total amount of items were less than 20 grand that came up, and that didn't work either. And what these other side proposed, which I don't think is bad as a listing agent, I don't like it as buyer's agent, is I won't negotiate any single items less than like 10 grand. But that situation would have had probably, if he had 10, 20 issues in that range, it would be an issue. So what we ended up doing is we actually, on that one, we did an inspection where the seller was reimbursed prior to offer being accepted. With the seller to agree to reimburse So that's what we did on this and on the inspection stuff. Anything else you're doing, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, waiving an inspection is a big risk, so I try to like keep that as a last resort if possible. I've had a lot of success with still doing inspections, but getting them done in like 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
And then doing either a pass fail, meaning like we either accept it as is, or we reject it and it goes back in the market, but we're not going to ask for repairs, or putting a dollar threshold in for repair requests. And typically it's like $1,500 in our market. Like if it's above $1,500, fair game to ask for. If it's below that, then we won't ask for it. And I actually feel like that does a really good job of keeping your buyer in check too. I'm not asking for ridiculous things on the inspection request.
Yeah.
It kind of frames expectations on both sides, you know.
Yeah, and definitely looking at how it is in your market, because I will say in our market, people abuse some of that stuff. So the pass fail inspections have been abused, and the amounts have been abused where no listing agents actually believe that they actually mean anything that they've written on paper.
Mhm.
So it's we have to look at each scenario to make sure it actually makes sense.
Yeah. We coach a lot of our sellers too to get inspections done before they list, just because obviously accepting a offer that does not have an inspection contingency is in their best interest. And so it's not, I would say there's probably 15 to 20% of the homes out here have an inspection already done on them before they put it on the market, you know. That's always the best thing for your client too, because then at that point, they're paying nothing to access the inspection and they know what they're getting.
You got a question, Tony?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw something in there, see what you guys think, because we always we see some good ideas out there, and I want to get your feedback. When it comes to inspections, since you're speaking about that right now, and I haven't done this yet, but it's something I thought was interesting. When you guys are talking about price, putting something that's a little more, a little different increments, whatever it takes to get attention. I saw a post, I forget where on Facebook it was. Somebody has suggested that when they work with their buyers and write an offer, one of the things they put in there to make it attractive, we all know the strategies of like rent back if necessary, extension of escrow time, whatever. So someone put in their offer, buyer will accept, like putting their foot forward before the inspections even happen or offer accepted, that they'll handle the first like $1,000 in repairs. Meaning, hey, if we buy this house, we're letting you know we're okay with, say, $2,000 in repairs because the people really want the house. So if there's nickel dime stuff, the seller can go shoo. Or, if it's something health and safety related, that's a different conversation. So what are your opinions about putting in your offer on day one, putting it out there? Buyers are willing to cover the first, say, $1,000 in repair, if any needed, just to make the seller and listing agent go, oh, they're pretty cool about repairs a little bit. Maybe that makes it a little more attractive. Maybe that makes it seem more amiable if there are repair concerns. So I want to kind of get your collective opinions on that. Thanks.
Yeah, so that is so when we're doing like the $10,000 or $20,000 aggregate, that's basically what we're doing is we're saying we'll take care of up to $10,000 or $20,000 worth of repairs, and anything up and above that where we can negotiate. It's obviously subjective because what is the estimate you get for that and things like that. But that's we do that quite a bit. It does work, but like I mentioned before, sometimes some listing agents don't believe that you're actually doing that because some people have abused it in our market.
I see. I also too, I think someone just posted that. Are you saying that's your limit? So since we're not lawyers, obviously, we would want to word it that, buyers are maybe willing to entertain, repair, some repairs up to a total of $1,000, but of course, subject to any further negotiation. So yeah, it's a good point. We don't want to accidentally paint our people and go, oh, you said only to 1,000. Like, well, we would want to word it carefully, or 10,000. If you're buying a $3 million house and you're willing to pay the first 10 grand, you're hoping that you don't have to go that far. But if they really want to win, and if there's no repairs needed, then you just had a nice feather in your hat going in, got the attention, got an offer, no repairs needed. Great. But yeah, I just want to kind of see what you guys, how would you, not to hold you to it, but just off the top of your head, what would be a way to word buyers are willing to, handle approximately $5,000 in repairs, subject to inspection, of course, subject to be modified as needed. So I was kind of curious, like, how would you, not that we're going to hold you to it, but can you give us a hypothetical example, wink, wink, how you would word that. Because I haven't used it yet, so I'm kind of wondering how you would sample it.
Yeah, I mean, it really, buyers willing see now you get minutes.
Sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Buyers will not renegotiate if total cost of repairs is less than $10,000.
There you
And sometimes we'll add and reserves the right to back out if significant health or safety issues are found.
She's right in the office, not me.
I said, no, can you see that? Can you see that first sentence one more time, please? That sounded good.
Buyer will not renegotiate from home inspection if total cost of repairs is less than $10,000.
So are you guys, I don't know if you guys this is happening with you guys all, Novak. Are you have people waiving mortgage contingencies when they're getting a mortgage? Is
Yeah.
that pretty common in your market?
If you've got a strong buyer, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer if it's competitive, and if in certain submarkets where it's really competitive, it's something you definitely want to entertain doing. Waiving appraisal contingency at a minimum is something to think about. The way that I explain it to buyers typically is like, hey, if you're putting, 15% down on a house, you could easily just drop that to 5% down and allocate the other 10% to low appraisal coverage, and your cash to close would be the exact same, but your offer is going to be presented in a way which was much more appealing to the seller. So that's definitely something to consider doing. Waiving finance, like again, if it's your trusted lender that you've worked with a lot and they've got them pre-underwritten, shouldn't be a huge deal. I think out of like one of our lenders we've done over 500 transactions with, and there has been one person out of those 500 that they pre-underwritten that didn't close. And that's because the person had a $50,000 tax and come up 2 days before the closing date. Like there was no way to know,
Our lender for our lower down payment ones, they're underwritten, approved, and he'll pay up to $5,000 if it doesn't close due to financing.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Irrespective of separate from earnestment even.
Yeah, I've seen that from lenders. I just don't think it carries much weight in the eyes of listing agents because they don't believe the lender's actually going to do it.
So I have one situation as a listing agent that bit me on this, where it was a waived appraisal, but they had a financing contingency, and they were able to produce a decline on the loan and get their deposit back and it really was because the appraisal did not come in. So I've been a little careful on that as to if I'm really trying to if I'm on the list side, I actually like to have an amount. Buyers is willing, and then show proof of funds for that additional amount. So provide that, proactively. If they're putting 20% down and they're gonna make up another 50 grand, show a proof of funds for the 20% plus the 50 grand to show that it's not just something on paper, they actually can do it. Because my situation, the buyers didn't give the lender all of their bank statements. So according to what the lender had, they could decline them for the loan. So it was messy. What else did we not talk about today? One thing that we do, I don't know if you guys do this, but we've definitely got offers accepted by paying the seller's closing costs. They just it's one thing to pay, if we have an option to pay a little bit more or pay the seller's closing costs, it just goes a long way. And we, multiple offers, 10, 15 offers, and wow, this person's paying my closing costs. It doesn't even have to be the best offer sometimes. It makes it look different than every other offer they're sitting in front of. So, so I definitely consider that strategy because we have had it work better than a lot of the other strategies to get, and it could be we're going to pay $5,000 of the seller's closing costs. Or, because I wouldn't say all, I'd pick a specific number, but pick a number and it will.
We've done 1,500 and 2,000 and still had it stand out. It doesn't have to be enormous quantities of cash.
Yep. One other thing I'd just throw out there is what I call an offer highlight sheet. It's just kind of an offer summary. it's kind of like a cover letter explains to the listing agent just the best parts of your offer and why they should take it. And an offer is 30, 40 pages long. It's a lot to digest and pick through. It makes it very easy for them to see what's clean about your offer. If you're gonna send an offer, make it like super easy for the agent to access it. Like I've seen weird crap like drive links, transaction desk links. I had one guy that sent me every single attachment as a different signing from his buyer. Like just a train wreck of an offer submittal. So like make it really easy for them to see your offer, to print your offer and to present it, right? The best way to do that is one attachment, not 7, 1, okay? Have your offer highlight sheet, have your pre-approval letter right behind it, and then have your offer. Just keep it super clean and super simple. Don't send them a whole bunch of attachments or links to download or some weird OneDrive link that they can't access.
So do you do, so we do in the body of the email, we do a highlight sheet. So they can read, basically almost read our offer before they even open the link.
Yeah, and I like that, but I like it also on top of the offer. And the reason I do that is because if there's 10 offers, I found most listing agents will just print the entire thing, and then I know it's going with them to their seller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the seller can see it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Susan's hand up for a minute. Susan, what you got?
I really like having just gone through that multiple offer situation and trying to make sure that I had printed out and seen every single offer, and then putting it all together was nerve-wracking. So I love the idea of an offer sheet and on top of the attachment. I think that's a great idea. Thank you for that. Question, so what I'm starting to see is for some of my buyers who've missed out on houses, now every day when something new comes in, can we go see it? Can we go see it? Can we go see it? And I got caught in that trap last year where I was running from left to right at multiple times during the week and hours of the day. And I was completely not in control, but I want to be sure, and they're nervous that the house is going to be sold out from under them if we can't get out to see it on the weekend. And do you have any suggestions for how we can kind of manage and contain the touring of homes with buyers so that they don't miss out, but also so that we're not at the beck and call of every buyer that we have right now wanting to go and see a brand new offer house?
So, and are you a solo agent, Susan?
I do have a team that I rely on. And I'm primarily a listing agent, but for some reason right now I happen to have a lot of buyers, first-time buyers, and I love helping them. But yeah, and I can avail myself of showing agents. That does help.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, a lot of people struggling, and right now, I mean, when I first started, I would basically hire anybody in my office and I pay them to do it because I needed a body.
Yeah.
If you can work out, I would personally, I mean, I don't know your whole situation. I'd work up some deal with somebody to be like more of a primary on that. So you're not sending your people with 15 different people. And that's what we do. I mean, so me and Kim work as a team, and we have a third person, Keith. I think Keith's on here too. He was on here. But because you can't be, 2 isn't enough. A lot of times we need 3.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you.
So, so we went through quite a bit here. I know I'm available to help in any way if anybody needs help in a specific scenario. I think the only other thing I thought of was, sometimes we'll write into the offer that we'll take, the house as is with all its belongings, so we sell some rough houses sometimes. So just being ready, like when I buy something, it's always with all the contents, regardless of what it is. But we're gonna be doing this every week. It'll be through Real Academy every week, same time every week. Hoping to see all you guys. It's great. We're up to, I think we had 30 people on here today. It's great to have this growing group of people. And you'll see the topics come out every week. You'll get reminders of the upcoming meetings. And it usually go right around 45, 50 minutes every week.
Cool.
Okay. Chime in on Mike?
Love it.
No, really good conversation. Like Jim said, if you've got questions about some of the stuff, feel free to reach out to us, both Jim, Rachel, myself. We're all on Marco Polo. We have nonstop engagement with agents across the country there. Feel free to reach out to us, send us a Facebook message, and we'll get you connected. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.